Oh, good.
Cool. Thanks for agreeing to be on the show because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
depending on someone's internet or their technology situation. Some people I've asked to have on the show and they're just like discombobulated with anything technology. So I'm like, all you need is a phone at the most minimum, but
Yeah, I mean, we're doing it from the iPad over here.
that
It's
works.
pretty simple.
It works. Um, so let's start from the bottom, man. Like
All
me
right.
myself growing up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's like I feel like going to an event and hearing you play and just like seeing you is like a rite of passage. Like really. So
Well, it's been kind of funny because it seems like this subject's come up a lot recently where it's like, oh yeah, dude, you played my first rave. But it's like many people have told me that. And that's why I said that on the Boura show in the comments, because I played that party. And I know he didn't say that, but I remember playing that show. And it's just one of those things where, I mean, there was a probably 8-year period of time where in Albuquerque, um, I played most and not necessarily even like 75%, probably like 50 or 60%, but like enough of the shows where that was kind of how it was. Like I was just always on something somewhere. And a lot of times it was like I was opening the night up or, a lot, I would open up before people or I'd play super late. And it was, there was always like 5 or 6 different people, but I was like a lot of times with one of them. And part of it was, I was at the record shop or, whatever period of time it was, I was always kind of involved with something.
Mhm.
So and I tried to be super adaptable back then, and I still try to do that today, but especially back then you kind of had to know like, okay, this person's going to be playing like 135 hard house or trance or whatever, and I kind of have to bridge gaps, and that was
Yeah.
always my thing, is I could bring it from here to there, wherever it needed to be. That was like my challenge, you
Yeah.
know. So, and I was like super laid back about it. And I mean, it's like, you want me to open? Okay, cool. You want me to do this? Okay, cool. Like I was never one of these like, if you're gonna have me play, I have to play at 12 or
Yeah.
whatever. It just helps to be kind of easy to get along with and fit in.
That's great. So how I guess let's take it back to the young Reverend Mitten. Um
Young Rev.
where is your music influences where do your music influences start?
Well, so I, unlike most of the DJs, I didn't play an instrument. I didn't. My older brothers, 6 years older and 8 years older, were buds, and they had records, but they had like the pop music of the late '70s, early '80s, right?
Mhm.
So 45s, albums like Journey and just whatever was popular,
Yeah.
awesome stuff. And then when I got to be aware enough of music and liking songs, and there were some songs that I liked more than others, and then it was like, well, I want to buy records. And so age like 7 8, I would go, and this is back when you could get a 45 for like $2, and I'd just go and find a song I liked and buy it. And so I had like a little stash, nothing like huge by any means, but and then I started hearing like rap music, hip hop, and my brothers weren't really into it, and I was, and so that was like, okay, this is my thing. It was a little bit of a generational separation, even though they weren't that much older than me. It just, I took to it, and then once I started having like allowance money or and whatever little cash I had, it was straight to the mall 5 blocks away. They had a
Oh,
record shop in there, and I was buying 12 inches and I was buying albums, and I didn't have like equipment. I was just buying records. And uh, when I was probably, I want to say 11 or 12, I had like this many like 12 inches and albums, all
nice.
like hip hop stuff. And a friend of mine from elementary school had like older brothers too, and they were having some kind of party, and there was a DJ there, and they were like, go get your records. And so I like ran home, or on the bike, and brought them back over, and these guys started like mixing my records, and I was just like, that's what I want to do. Like immediately, like I'm going to learn how to do that. And every decision since then was like made with I'm going to figure out how to do that. And then once I had equipment, I'm going to learn how to do this. And, I wanted to be like Jam Master Jay or something, but, apparently not. Like I can't scratch. I'm not a turntablist.
Yeah.
But that's like the seed. So.
And how old were you when you went to that party and you saw those people DJing?
God, like I'm estimating, but I had to be like 11 or 12,
Wow.
And it was like at their house,
Yeah.
Like in their living room, they had cleared out everything out of the way, and this guy had a DJ set up. And it was like, oh, all right, this is why I've been doing this. This is what it's for, So
wild.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have old records because like before I was ever DJing, I was buying records, and so it was cool, but then it was also like frustrating for like, another 6, 7, 8 years because I didn't really have anybody to show me. And so, I bought a set of used decks with my first money from my first job from a pawn shop, and they were belt drive. And I'm trying to like figure out, like, I didn't even have a concept of like BPM or anything like that. So like, the first time I actually like blended 2 songs together, it was completely on accident. It was just because they happened to be like
the same BPM,
close enough in tempo. And then I was like, then like I got a tape and like got a recording set up and like tried it and did that one thing for like 2 weeks,
Yeah.
So it was a trip.
So did you ever come across others, like older people who were DJing that you could ask questions? How did that evolve?
There was a guy in my
Hold up 1 second. You're cutting out. I'll just give it 1 second. You're frozen. We got a frozen Rev on the screen. I love how you're. Just give it 1 second. You'll come back.
But other than that, not really.
Okay, so as soon as I asked you that question, you froze.
Oh yeah. No. So there was a guy in my high school who DJ'd, and he was an MC, and like he basically was like recording his first album while we were in high school. Wow. And I knew of him, and like, but we weren't friends. Like I would never like go over to his house or something. But what he did do one time is like I got a tape that was a recording of him mixing, and that kind of sets, because we had some of the same songs, like just some of the popular like late 80s, early 90s hip hop stuff that he was like mixing it. And I was like, oh, okay, like I see what you're doing. Let me go try and practice that. But other than that, I never really had anybody like say, you need to do this, or here's what you can do to improve, or anything. I basically learned all this stuff on my own at first. And then like with house and stuff by watching other people do what they were doing. And then by having conversations like this, where it's like, oh, well, when I do this, or, once you're like DJing and kind of bouncing ideas off of other young DJs, but there was never like an older person or a guy who was like, here, I'm going to show you all the basics ever. Like I never had that. So
that's awesome. How did like collecting records and then like finding hip hop and then being inspired by, maybe an older DJ or two, how did that turn into like your search for dance music?
Well, the intention was always to play hip hop, but it kind of took a turn. I want to say I was a junior in high school. We started going out to like, there were all ages places. I was living in Austin at the time, and there's like some all ages places where I could go in. They were like alcohol free, but they were downtown, and all the music was kind of like goth, what would be called goth now, like alternative. That was huge there. Yeah, no, totally after hours, like everybody's wearing black. And then the DJ would get in like Paid in Full or something, just like one song, you know, and I'd get totally hyped, and like then it wouldn't happen anymore. But we were always kind of like on the lookout for things like that might be going on. And we got invited to, I'm not going to say it was like the first rave, but we got invited to like one of the early sets of raves in 92 out there. And it was like, okay. And when we got there, I was like, okay, this is completely different. It's not, I always thought of that stuff as like sad music. Like, it's not sad music. It's not angry music. It was like, I didn't know what house or techno or anything was like at all, but I liked it better than the industrial / goth music. And I kind of, when we would go to these shows more and more, there was one guy who would play later who would play more housey. And I didn't really even know that it was house, but it was like, it's instruments with the 4/4, and it was like fresher to me. So I started like cluing in on where that guy was going to be, and they would do like park parties and other things. And so I
Oh, we got a frozen rev again. We stopped at park parties. Hold up 1 second. Let's get you back. This is the trials and tribulations of the internet. 1 second. 1 second. We're going to get you back. There you are. You're back.
And we're back.
And we're back. It's like the trials and tribulations of the internet. It's like when Holly and I first started the other night before I pressed record, we were having some technical difficulties as well, but we got it sorted. But it's this is natural. It's going to happen. So you talked about you followed that guy. They were throwing like park parties, and you just kind of tried to follow that sound, sort of.
Yeah, well, and it was him, and then I found out about some other people, and this was like the end of my junior year, and then my whole senior year of high school were like, we were kind of finding out. And I had some friends who were a couple years older than I was, so we would all just as a group kind of go, and we were learning about this sound. And I figured out where they were buying the records, so I would go shop there and like see what was what. And then I started like identifying tunes, and like, oh, I would go buy that. And you just kind of go down the rabbit hole. And that whole time I was also still doing hip hop stuff, but it was kind of, the shift was starting to happen. And then when I moved here to Albuquerque, I came here for college. I was like about, at that point, like 50-50. My collection wasn't 50-50, but I was 50-50 in terms of like styles that I was trying to play. And then it shifted even more once I got here.
So you went to UNM? Oh, we got a frozen rev again.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay.
I came out to go to UNM, and oh yeah, we're gonna have to work hard.
It's okay. It's okay. So what did you study when you were going to UNM?
Well, I came out here and I was in the journalism department, and then I didn't feel like I was learning that much because my high school journalism department was very good, and this one wasn't really any better. And so it became my minor. I have a degree in history. I went back and got a teaching certificate like 8 years later that I don't use. But coming to UNM basically set my roots here. Met, like, the very first weekend I lived here, I went to Ritual, which was like, if those who know, but it was like an after hour spot. There had been a rave scene here already. Brad Cole, Sean Parker, Donovan Livingston, like, a lot of other people. I went to Ritual the first weekend that I lived in Albuquerque, met Donovan and Sean, and they were playing, like, I recognized some of the songs. So it was like, okay, like, I found a spot. And met Donovan like that night, and from there we're like buds and just playing, and I found people to play music with. So
That's
it was cool.
important to find your community. Like that's cool that you were able to do it on like the first weekend moving to Albuquerque.
And it was because they had put out little, handbill flyer, and I went to find the record shops,
Yes.
and it was like Friday and Saturday night. So I went down there.
Do you remember what record shops that you used to frequent in Albuquerque that aren't maybe there anymore?
I mean, Bow Wow was the first one that I found. It was right there in Nob Hill. It was painted like a cow. I don't know if it was around when you were starting to shop, but it was like right smack in Nob Hill, so I could like walk there from the dorm,
Nice.
And other than that, there was like Record Roundup, but for the most part, there wasn't really a dedicated electronic shop at that time.
Okay.
When I first moved here. There were many starts and stops, and then successful or semi-successful shops since then. That was part of me trying to be involved, was like I would always volunteer to work at the shop, and most of the time just get paid with records and be close to what's new.
That's really cool that you were able to work at the shop and be able to like be there when something fresh came in, just kind of have like the first dibs. Oh, we got a Frozen Rev again. We're gonna have to have like a nickname for Frozen Rev.
Frozen Rev. Oh,
Frozen Rev. It's all. How far away are you from your router?
I'm like in the same room.
You know what? It's all these kids doing homework, man.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Well, and I told everybody else, like, chill on the
Chill on the data.
Yeah. Well, the young one's walking in the neighborhood right now with mom. So
nice. That's a fun time. I wish that I was able to get outside right now, but I might go work in the garden later.
Yeah.
So you were able to work at some of the record shops.
Yeah, I worked for Chris DeJesus at a place called Risque Records.
Okay.
Or even that, Donovan like had this little pad that it was like they would throw little events there, and they started ordering records, and we would like order from the lists and stuff. It wasn't really ever a full-fledged record shop, I don't think, because it was such a short period of time. But there was always something like that going on, like somebody had a hook with like a distributor, or we would read the little fax list. Like they would fax a list every week, and we read the list and be like, oh, that sounds like it could be cool. Or I have another record by that guy. We weren't even hearing the records, like just by description.
That's cool.
And that was like how we ordered at the shops too. It was like, oh, it's a new DJ Sneak record or whatever. You know what I mean? It was just like you could get on the phone with the guy at the distributor. And I was doing that for a while at the Loft, where they would play me stuff over the phone. Like, okay, that sounds cool. We need 5 of those. But it was just like little snippets over the phone. And I'd spend like an hour or two on the phone with this guy.
So there's some dude on the other side, like playing a record and putting the phone up to it. Wow.
Yeah, up to a speaker. Yeah.
Oh, man.
We would do that. And I mean, it's like I said, it's just being close to the shops and being close to new records. It was like, that was a time when, I mean, these days, every song's available to everybody everywhere, unless it's not released yet. And it's like somebody's secret ID or whatever. But I mean, anything that's commercially available, you can go find it and you can make it a part of your set. Back then it was like, you had to find the record. Hopefully it's in stock. I mean, like it was, people's sets were differentiated, but on the flip, like there was really only like 100 records available every week. So it was like, what are you going to get, And so a big record, like every DJ in town would have it. And are they playing this cut, or are they playing a different remix, or are they not playing it all because everybody else is playing it? And it's just like, it's one of those things that isn't around anymore. I mean, I guess like, I'm sure there are probably DJs who play all the same tunes as each other still, but like, it's almost like it's a whole different world when it comes to that kind of stuff now.
It's crazy just to see how far it's come in such a short amount of time, from being, you know, records to the digital age of internet, and just being able to instantly download, you know, 100 songs.
Oh yeah.
What did Bauer say? He said cheat codes. You remember what he said about cheat codes?
Yeah, well, it's like, you know, the top 10 or top 100 or whatever. And I mean, there's something to be said for that, because that's like, especially younger DJs now, it seems like they latch onto that because they don't know the dig yet. And I say, because usually if you're dedicated to it, you'll learn. Like, you don't find a DJ who's been doing it 10 years digitally now who doesn't dig for something.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, there's really nobody out there who only plays the top 100 or top 10 or whatever. I mean, it's kind of like when you're a younger DJ, you just don't know the dig as well yet, and you haven't fully formed your taste and your selections, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, everybody has to start somewhere. And
I like that perspective.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like, we made our mistakes in public. Like, we train wrecked in public. We let records run out in public. You know, and I only say that because when I moved here, you could count the DJs on like 3 hands. You know what I mean? Like, there really weren't very many of us. So we always all played. And I don't want to say it didn't matter if we were good or not. I mean, the people who are good, like, were appreciated more. But it's like, it didn't matter if you made a mistake, because it's not like there was like 100 people who were begging to play. There just weren't very many DJs. So it was like, okay, well, we'll be back next week and we'll try this again. You know what I mean? You'd have a bad night and you'd beat yourself up over it, but then you'd realize, like, it's not like I'm out of a job. Like, I'm going to still come back and play more and have fun. And that's just kind of, we were fortunate, because these days it's like, I feel like it's super judgmental now. It's like, you can't make a mistake or whatever. Technology doesn't even allow you to make mistakes anymore. So
yeah, I don't know. I gotta admit, sometimes I'm super jaded. I'll talk some shit.
Well, and I get that. I mean, like, you don't want to hear like somebody who's just awfully off. You know, you don't want to have to endure that. But the thing is, we don't have to. I mean, like, there's so many options now.
That's true.
Like, I don't. That's the other part of back then. There weren't very many options. So if you wanted to come hear this music, there's maybe like 2 things on a weekend, and half the DJs who played on Friday are playing on Saturday too.
Yeah. You know? So when do you think, I don't know, I would like to hear your version of like the timeline in Albuquerque or in New Mexico in the Southwest, from that time to like maybe now, how it's changed. What are your views on good, the bad, the I'm not sure, the maybe where you think it might go?
Well, I'll say this has always been a DIY place. And, you know, I know you're big on DIY. I've heard you talk about it. And you live it. Like, you do your things, you promote your stuff. You aren't depending on other people. I mean, I'm almost certain that you and I had a conversation about this when you were first starting out. That, like, if you want to do stuff, Albuquerque is a place, New Mexico is a place where if you have the hustle, and if you are not an asshole about it, you can like get people on board and make something, because there isn't a SFX corporate entity pulling all the strings like, oh no, you're blacklisted. And that was always the funny thing. Like 10-15 years ago, when I was working at the record shops, everybody thought it was like that. And I'm like, no, dude, like, people book their friends. Like, that's kind of how parties work. Like, we all book our friends. I want to play with Carlos. I want to play with my homies. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't know you and I think you're fresh and you're nice when we talk, I'll be like, hey, come play. Like, and my whole thing has always been, if you feel like you're not getting the time, put some time in, get a little crowd together, throw a show, find a spot. Like, it's really not rocket surgery. It's just like, you just got to work, and you have to be willing to have some tough nights. And maybe it's not awesome at the very beginning, but the thing is, you're honing a craft, you're honing a skill. And as much as DJing's the skill, the other skill is being personable and promoting. And because like there isn't a promoter sitting in his office saying, oh, let me listen to these 100 demos. Oh, that guy sounds awesome, we're going to make him the next star. Like that doesn't work that way. And I mean, at least not here, you know. And I feel like as small as it is, you know, maybe we can't afford the $10,000 headliners, but what's cool about here is if you want to do something, you can do it. And there's nobody really like stopping you.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more populated now. Like there are way more shows. So competition is a lot more abundant. So you kind of have to pick your spot sometimes. So like Down Low folks, they can throw a show and there'll be like 2 or 3 other shows. What you hope for is that they didn't book like a Dirty Bird person over here while John's trying to do Down Low over there, you know. And it's like, you hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, you're still going to have people at both. And it's not like date stomping or, you know, that was like a thing for a while where people would get mad if there were 2 raves on the same night. And it's like, I get it. Like the crowd is sparse, but if you cater to a crowd that you've developed, you don't have to worry so much about it.
Absolutely.
You know?
I remember some of those first conversations that we had.
Yeah.
And you telling me like, you know, if you build it, it's up to you. If you build it, they will come. And like I hold on to a lot of that wisdom that you passed on in my early days, like God, going on 10 years ago now, you know, when I first started playing music.
I mean, and if you build it, it's yours.
Yeah.
And that's the other part. Like I am more removed from promoting now than I used to be. I mean, promoting was always a necessity. I don't even really feel like I'm naturally talented for that part of it. We did it because we had to, because again, nobody was just sitting there with a checkbook wanting to pay us to DJ. You know, I mean, it was like we had to make things happen or else nothing was going to happen. And so I'm more removed from the promotional side, but I'm fortunate that like I can still kind of fit in with some of the other people who are throwing things. And I always tell them, you know, whenever you need me, I'm here. And I try and support the people who are doing it for what I consider to be the right reasons, which is to share music and to build a community of people who are cool and not whack.
I definitely take a lot of that sentiment, and the Whitney and I both in the shows that we do, that we are more interested in building a family of like-minded folks than we are at promoting something that's hype or promoting a scene. You know, we want to build a family that loves music, and we want, you know, I know that those people that are here this weekend are probably going to come to my next show because we're friends and we get along and we enjoy the same type of music and we enjoy the same type of conversation, or, you know, we enjoy the same type of pot or something silly, you know, just being friends.
Well, and the other side of that, I mean, you and John talked about community, John Holly. And I mean, that's like the word scene. It's almost like, I've lightened up on it a little bit, but I used to consider that almost like a dirty word, because we're not like trying to do a scene. Like a scene is like a drug scene or a, you know what I mean? Like we're trying to build a community of people to where if one of us gets evicted from our house, like 5 of the people from that community would come and like help that person move out and put them up on their couch. You know, like we're trying to build friendships, not a scene where we're all going to get popular and be on the cover of a magazine or something. You know what I mean? It's just different. And there's definitely, you know, with EDM or whatever, like there is definitely a component of it where there are people who want to get big. They want to blow up. They want to travel. They want to play on the big stages. I don't begrudge anybody for wanting to do that because it looks really fun. And especially if you enter in, if you're like in your 20s now, like that's kind of what you know. It's just different for me. And I think you understand it. And there are a lot of people, even who are in their 20s, who kind of like look at what we're doing and it's like, oh, that's different from this. And I like this better. But I don't begrudge somebody for wanting to go to a rave concert. I call them rave concerts because it's like
that's what they are really now.
Rave. They're basically just big shows in a theater or in a, you know, the festivals are like wherever they are, and their sound, lighting, pyrotechnics. It's basically what like Van Halen used to be, but now it's like guys playing their electronic music. And I mean, that's fun. Like, have at it, have fun. Please be safe. Please grow up and have fruitful lives outside of that. And you know, I mean, some of those kids grow up and grow into house. Some of those kids grow up and leave the community or the scene altogether. But it's always been that way. And I used to say, like, back when I was closer to the age, it was like kids would get out of high school and go into college, and it was almost like you had a new class every year of kids who are kind of allowed to come out, and they'd start coming to parties. And at first it's like hundreds of them from that class would be coming out, and then really only like 5 or 10% of them actually stick around for more than 5 years or so, because they either grow on and they never really connected with the music on a level like you and I or others of our community end up connecting. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. I do see.
No, it's not forever.
We got a frozen rev. Hold up. Frozen rev.
And you know,
Hold up. We're going to get you back.
I was going to say you're stuck.
Yeah. We're going to get you back. Hold up. Yeah, I heard you say stuck. Give me 1 second. I'm going to let the internet. I knew I should have gotten that upgraded modem.
It's probably me. I don't even, our internet in this neighborhood's been all wonky. Like, Allison complains about it when she's trying to work sometimes. Just, I think, like you said, everybody's at home streaming and doing homework and using Zoom to have happy hour. And
it's definitely like when you say this, the EDM sort of more modern day, like at the younger kids or, you know, people in their 20s, you know, even mid 20s, and, you know, maybe a little older. It's very interesting to get the multiple perspectives. And I'm very appreciative to be a part of a community, you know, that's now worldwide in a sense, you know, with the internet. And except we were doing some parties last year, and it was very interesting to hear, you know, they were more prevalent in town here. And it was very interesting to hear other people's opinions or perspectives or views. You know, the majority of people are super stoked to come, but it was very interesting to, you know, if we would be throwing an event on the same day as another event, like, I'm not animosity or sourness, but it was interesting to feel awkwardness from other people, where for me, it was like, it was never like meant to feel awkward. It was like, no, there's no absolute bad intention whatsoever. Someone that was throwing another party on the same day as us used the word competition, right? So I think it's a weird word for me. I was like, I don't want to feel like competition. I don't want to feel like I'm taking anything from anyone. You know, I don't want to feel like that at all. So I think that, you know, our event was free, you know, their event was paid, and there was like a lot of, there was a lot of like talk around that. But, you know, our perspective is like, we want to offer something when we do throw a free event, that we don't want someone's financial situation to hold them back from experiencing the music that they love, and then the community that we cherish. But it's very interesting to see how some people might experience this awkwardness, even myself, from others, or vice versa, you know, maybe unintentionally, absolutely unintentionally sometimes. And that could be because people, you know, there's money in things like this nowadays, where, you know, money is, for some people, this is everything, you know, like they put their whole check towards an event or something like that.
I've been there. You know, I mean, like, and really, and this is what I'll say, like, and I talked about date stomping for a bit earlier. What was happening for a number of years was there was this thing between Albuquerque and Santa Fe, and Santa Fe had Cosmic Kids and some other promoters, and they were throwing these amazing shows. And this was like pre quote unquote wook, but it was like more spiritual. It was on a higher plane. They were, there was a lot of, you know, transcendent imagery. And then in Albuquerque, it was just more like a party. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to rave. It's like party time. And if a show would be happening on the same night in both places, there would be that awkwardness
Mm-hmm.
or almost like, you know, competition. And sometimes people would be like, hey, like, could you move your show? Like things would get announced close to the same time. And I have empathy because like, I know if I put all this money into a show and it bombs out, like I don't have savings. I don't have like a trust fund where I can like pull up some more and do it all over again. Like if I lost everything, I wouldn't be able to do anything for a long time again. Yeah. And so it kind of sucked because like we were in a time when it wasn't as big, and it wasn't like basically people would usually choose one or the other, and it was hard. Yeah. I always tried to like make amends, and I was always happy to go up to Santa Fe and play and have people from up there come down if we were doing something. But there's definitely some of this, even with people who I consider very good friends to this day, there was like some like angst, and it's not personal. It was more just situational. And but the thing is now, like you can't even be like that now. Like there's a dozen people who could throw a show, and they're all going to be pretty high quality, and they're all going to have really good DJs. And like, I can't, who am I to say like, no, you can't throw your show because I'm throwing mine. Like that's it's, but there's a lot more people to support it. So like there could be a show at Meow Wolf and a show at Effects and then some other little show, and all three of them will be pretty fine as long as you didn't like spend way too much on a headliner, you know? But I mean, I as much as I appreciate headliners, like I don't think you need one. Like,
hallelujah.
I feel like I made that post yesterday with 40 DJs, and it was kind of to prove a point. Like we've got like, and this, I feel like the look into the living room is also proving a point. Like we all do the same thing. We all have our own tastes. I'm not as good as some of these people. Some of these people are amazing, and that's why they get paid, and that's why they're headliners. But the thing is, we can still have fun if it's Carlos B and John Barra and Anna M and The Rev and John Holly. And, I mean, like none of us are breaking the bank, and we could have that would be an amazing party. You know what I mean? Like, and so I took that, I've opened for all these people posts that's been floating around, and I flipped it because to me, it's like, I have opened for every single one of those people on the list, plus like hundreds of other people that I couldn't think of in that moment. And it's like, I'm proud to have done that. Like we have amazingly talented locals. Like Portland probably does. I say probably Portland does. I don't even know who they are, and I know they're there. Just like Phoenix, just like Denver, just like, I mean, it's not the headliner culture. I feel like kind of drives that out because a lot of times we get so hung up on who the big person is that we don't like, everybody like gets there right before they go on and they don't enjoy the whole evening. Yeah. And that's just not where I am. Like if I'm gonna be out, first of all, we gotta find somebody to watch the kids. So if like we're gonna be out, we're gonna go out early. We're gonna hear as many of the people as possible. Usually if I'm playing early. So I'm gonna play early and then hear whoever else is playing. And to me, like I'm not a big afters person anymore. I'm getting like practically elderly. But I'm there for the show, I'm there for the whole show, and I want to hear the progression between the DJs. And I feel like we're lucky enough here still where people give it that thought. Like they're not booking people all wonky all over the place. There still is kind of a progression for the most part. Meow Wolf has been amazing with that. Like they match up DJs with the headliner style, and like it's not, like this person's from Albuquerque, so they'll be a draw and we can get like, it's not one of those things where they're just trying to like piece together a crowd. They piece together the music. That's beautiful. And that's where we all come from. Like, I never have asked somebody to play and be like, I'll tell you when you're going to play later. I already know when I want them to play if I'm asking, because I kind of have it all mapped out.
Yeah.
Like, I think so-and-so would be good second. I think after that person, we're going to have this person. And it's just, you know, it's already like with a purpose.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of that has been lost, especially like you go to a bigger club, right? Even with the opener, they sometimes will have an opener that has already an established crowd, so they anticipate them pulling their crowd in, right? So like I've even thought sometimes, because, you know, are you asking, like, just deep inside, are you asking me to play this show because I have a crowd? Or are you asking me because you like my music? And sometimes I struggle with that. But at the same time, I go up there and I just do what I love. And at the end of the day, I know that I was there for the reason I was there for, was for the music.
Yeah. Well, and really, if they're asking you to play, you get to decide.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't mean, to me, it's like, if you're going to have me play, you've heard me play before. Yeah. I'm going to do what I do. I may lean techie, or I may lean deep, or I may just play a bunch of James Brown remixes. Who knows?
Love it.
But like, if you've heard me play, you know I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to like water it down, and I'm not going to hit the brakes and play whatever's on the radio. Like, that's just not me.
That's good.
So, I mean, when I had a bigger crowd, like, and people would book me for that, I'm still going to do what I do. Like, mm-hmm. like I have a crowd, but they all stay home too, because we're all getting up there. But
do you? I guess I got asked to play. I got asked to open for Paul Oakenfold last year, and I was really like thrown back. Like, really? Like, okay, this is kind of odd. So Whitney and I had the talk. Like, I was like, what do I don't know if, like, am I supposed to change it up? And I showed up and I played super minimal, and I wanted to just to keep it techie and minimal, and just wanted to keep it chill. Like, I had this whole idea of just like staying true to myself, but keeping it like what I would want to happen if I were, you know, such a big DJ. But I don't know if a lot of other people would have done that. I know a lot of people would have probably changed everything up just to match like this particular style. But I remember just being super caught off guard. I was like, you want me to open for Paul Oakenfold? Okay. This is weird, but I had fun, and it was really cool just to be on, like, you know, a stage, right? And play music for people who would not normally hear the kind of music that I'm going to play, because they're anticipating, you know, this other sort of branded content. So it was really cool to be able to share that. And I'm sure you've had those experiences too, where you've played a show that maybe didn't necessarily fit your, you know, your sound or who you normally represent yourself to.
So many. And really, like, I like you, I mean, I try and like figure out a way to make it match the show, mm-hmm. but still be me.
Yep.
And I feel like you and I are diverse enough. I mean, it's, you know, I'm never going to play like banging techno. I'm never really going to play trance. Like, maybe 20 years ago, I'd dust them off. But what I can do is build the vibe. And like, I always, especially if I'm playing right before whoever the headliner is, I basically just try and build it up and like hand it over like this and say, here you go. Start from square one with whatever you want to do and blow it up, because that's what people come for.
Yeah.
They you know, and you know, hopefully I'll give it some of my flavor to these people who would never come out to hear me necessarily. Like, mm-hmm. they wouldn't have gone out of their way to hear me, but by doing so, maybe it's like, oh yeah, I remember that guy, he opened for so and so, and like brought it, you know. And so if I could do that, that's perfect. You know, I mean, you want the party to go off.
Yeah. So, and that's how you build a bigger family too, because some of those people that were at that show that would have never heard you are going to like know who you are, and they're going to probably message you one day, be like, what do you do? You know, we've had people come to our shows before like that, and like, you know, I saw you here. I'm like, oh, thanks for coming. And they're like, I really like this. This is different than a normal show. So that's super fun to have those moments where, you know, someone sees you at one place and then all of a sudden you see them again. You're like, oh, something clicked, or, you know, something worked.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of being diverse, I remember one of my favorite sets ever was me and you played back to back at, like, it was Body Theory, where we did a Body Theory event, and you and I played drum and bass.
Yes.
And I don't know if even know if we told anyone. I just remember saying, "Hey, do you want to play drum and bass?" You're just like, "Fuck yeah, dude, let's do it." I was like, "Should we tell anyone?" You're just like, "No."
No. Well, I'm like, to me, that's, I've actually, I couldn't be a full-time drum and bass DJ because, like, to me, there's not enough music. It's weird. Like, there's tons of drum and bass, but like the segment that I like is pretty
Mm-hmm.
narrow. And so I would have trouble. But I like to pop up like 2 or 3, 4 times a year with one, and
Yeah.
I'll make a mix like at least once a year. And it's just like, but and I've had people tell me this exact thing. It's like when I play drum and bass, it's like still got my,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's almost like I just played a house set, but it's all 174.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and that's like kind of what I mean though. Like, you get your twist. Like, the biggest compliment that I've received, and it was from one of these guys. He was a promoter. He was a trance promoter. And it was when Brad Cole, shout out Brad Cole, one of the originators of the whole rave scene in this whole state. Um, he booked me to open for Bad Boy Bill at the Sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like when Bad Boy Bill was like playing harder. And so, like, I knew that I was going to go like an APAC, like I was basically just going to build it all the way up. And after that show, well, after my set, one of the guys who was like a promoter for like trance events was like, "I really don't like house, but I like what you were just playing." And I was like, "You like house, buddy. Like, there's so much house."
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like, I did what I had to do in that moment, you know? And then a few months later, somebody else was going to book him, and Bill's agent or whoever told that person, "You have to get the person who opened for him last time." So I got called by this guy who almost never booked me for anything, and is like, "Well, I'm going to book Bad Boy Bill, but his management said that you have to open." I'm like, "All right, let's go."
That's really cool, man. What a compliment.
Well, and it's like, I could have just like shrugged it off, but like, to me, it was important to set it up. Like, Bad Boy Bill's dope, but like, he wasn't on my list of like top DJs. It was, to me, it was like I was doing a job to like make the event go off, like we're saying. And I had fun doing it, and apparently it convinced some people, you know.
Awesome.
And so doing that kind of thing is important. Like, you may get a booking, and this is the other thing, is it's like super important to always bring your A game, because you don't know who's going to be listening. You don't know if the headliner is like behind stage, like checking you out, or maybe they're not, or maybe it's a promoter who never books you, who hears you do something different, and they're like, "Oh, I could use that. Like, this is like a side of Rev I've never heard," or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so bring your A game, play for the music, play for the people who come. Even if it's 20 people, play for those 20 people who are there. Even if it's 5 people, you know what I mean? Like, I've had tons of fun just like working it for 5 people, but all 5 people are just going off, because it's like,
some of your best sets is when it's just like you and a couple buddies.
Yeah.
I can relate to being that promoter and hearing someone I have no clue who they are and being like, "Wow, please play for me." Like, you know, so just as for anyone watching out there, you just never know who might be listening. You know, I'm not a huge promoter. I throw small shows, some small and medium-sized shows, but Whitney and I have been out, or Whitney's been like, "I heard this DJ playing tonight. Like, oh my God, you have to book this person." And it's important. That's important, is to be able to experience it in that way still. And I think being, you know, a quote unquote promoter, it's equally as important to be a showgoer, and equally as important to be a music lover and be like in the mix with people and be sociable and be nice and be kind, and, you know, try your best to, you know, check your ego at the door. Because all of us have some sort of ego-driven thing in just in our everyday personality. And I have to talk about that to the students all the time, because I had one of my kids, I won't say who he is a super awesome kid, but he had been DJing with me going on 2 years by the time he left my class. And I had to kind of put him in check by the time he left, because he was kind of being maybe not so kind to some of the newer DJ students that had come into class. And I was like, hey dude, like there's a million of us. There's a million
Mhm.
of us. And
Dime a dozen, crabs in a bucket. Like,
but it was really cool to, you know, to be that person, to maybe share that wisdom with him, because one day he might have maybe acted the wrong way to the wrong person and just been shunned by his community or whatever. I don't know how many times I met someone and being like, I don't fuck with that dude because he's kind of a dick. You know, there's plenty of those people. I'm not going to name y'all right now.
You can teach anybody to mix tunes and pick out great tunes, but you can't teach them how to not be an asshole. Like,
yes.
you know, I
Yeah.
mean, like, you got to be excellent to each other, or else what does it mean? Like, that's the vibe you're projecting.
And be real at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many times I, you know, people, I feel like I have a very good intuition about people's vibes. And there's a lot of, in this modern day society, a lot of, like, I'm going to straight call it out. There's a lot of fake people. There's a lot of like playing the card, right? People play the card.
Oh.
I feel like when people meet me, they meet the real me. I'm going to keep it 100 on the surface. And most of the time, like if I don't like you, I'm just gonna be like, dude, like, I don't like you.
I think I'm probably a lot more diplomatic than that, but I don't know.
It might be a downfall. I guess my mouth has gotten me into trouble more times than it's helped me, but at the same time,
like it probably serves you better. Like, I probably give people way too much leeway. You know,
I appreciate you. In fact, if I ever got locked up in Guantanamo, I would love for you to be the mediator to get me out. If I ever got locked up in North Korea,
I'm like,
fuck Bill Richardson, call Rev.
Yeah, we'll get it done.
Man, so we've talked a lot about like the musical journey you've been through and like the community. How did you get into eventually making music? Because I know it was more recent than it was.
Oh yeah. So like, you know, the first 10 or 15 years of me like DJing for people, I'm going on like 28 years now, but the first like 15 years, I never once thought, hey, I should learn how to make these songs. Like, it just wasn't a thing I thought about ever. And I am, again, like I never played an instrument. Like, I never was in band in school. My contribution was I always had music. I had a boombox, I had tapes, and then I had records. And like, you know, I wasn't a break dancer. I had the radio. I was like that person, you know? And so after a while, it was like some friends of mine started like tinkering, and then they were making cool things. And I was like, well, I could probably do this because I know what a good record, this was my stupid thinking back then. I know what a good record sounds like. So I should like, it shouldn't be pretty hard. It shouldn't be very hard for me to like go ahead and make one. Right. Yeah, no, like it's difficult for me. And it's mostly because, again, like I had Justin O'Brien like show me the ins and outs of Ableton. I had been like messing with Reason and like live, or not live. Well, I guess it was like this weird program. I forget what it was called. It was set up kind of like live, but not like, I mean, this is like super rudimentary. And none of the stuff I made, I call them toy songs because they never like thumped. They didn't really like have anything musical about them. I was just sampling things and kind of putting them in place and making a rhythm, and then like a sample that would repeat like 10 million times. And then, and that was it. You know, like I didn't understand synthesis. I didn't understand, like, I understood phrasing and stuff like that. So I would do that, and then I'd play my song next to real songs, and they were always hollow. And so I just like, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. And then Justin O'Brien he has like, by that time had like some trance records out. He had like one of the songs him and Jonathan wrote was like picked up on a Bedrock compilation. So he was like, you know, flying around DJing and stuff. And like a few years later, when we started doing the body language stuff, he was like, here, let me show you this program, Ableton. And I had a couple people tell me about it. And I'm like, okay, let's check it out. And he showed me how to do it. And that program made so much more sense than any of the other things. And so I was like, okay, I can try and do this. Most of my stuff is still very sample based. Like, I'm like the kind of person who'll be in the grocery store aisle and I'll hear like a disco song and I'm like, dude, we need to get this going, like pump it up, like just sample this one little bar and like it's going to be funky. I do that still, you know. And so I I don't write whole songs, so it's like I always am like kind of weary of saying like I'm a songwriter. No,
Yeah.
I'm a sampler. I use samples. I'll flip them. I'll kind of mash things together and come out with some stuff. A lot of times the samples are not recognizable, but they are sampled.
Yeah.
And I mean, but that to me, that's like the hip hop ethos, right? I mean, it's like that was like every hip hop song for the longest time was just sampling something dope from the 60s, 70s, you know? And early house music was the same way. I mean, or especially early like funky house music. It was all just like disco records that they like chopped up. I mean, all of Daft Punk's old catalog is that,
Yeah.
you know? And so I don't see anything wrong with it. I know that there's like a, should you sample or should you be like stretching your drum skins from the sheep that you farm, that weird meme, you know, like I'm very much in the camp of whatever gets it done. I don't care. Like if you made a song out of a Kanye West song and it's popping on the dance floor and people are getting down to it, I don't care. Like you know, it's good. Like whatever, use the pop hook, use whatever. If it's creative and it's actually funky, like people's pretensions kind of dissolve, you know, around it. And so I am very much sampling in Ableton. Like the song that I'm just finishing right now is samples Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes with Teddy Pendergrass singing. And it's just like, you know, and it's basically an edit, but like I've chopped it up enough to where it really doesn't sound like the bulk of the actual song. I basically took like these little parts that are almost like the outro and made a whole song out of it.
Wow.
And it's dope. I'll send it to you because it's basically done. I'm like, I haven't really tested it yet because we're locked in our homes. But you know, because usually before I like commit to releasing something, I want to hear it with sub bass and like a full, you know, stack. But I'll send it to you. It's fun. And, you know, for me, making music is kind of taking my attention because I can do that on weekends where I don't go out. You know, if we're just hanging out with the family, everybody goes to bed, I'll come in here and fire it up and write part of a song, you know.
That's awesome to hear your perspective on sampling. I myself have been trying to, you know, I would say that when I do attempt to write music, it's an even mix between, you know, 100%, you know, like completely like MIDI stuff, and then I might have like one or two like heavily sampled things. So they're usually like a voice or maybe like one string loop of something that I was like really interested in, caught my ear, or you know, I've been absolutely obsessed with like sampling Missy Elliott lately. Just obsessed. She just got so many like just like yeah, that's just like kind of just like these one, you know, and I've been absolutely obsessed with like taking it and putting like something. I listened to like a lot of early Dirty Bird sound. You know, I kind of wanted to just like listen to why I liked that sound when it first came out. And a lot of that music, they would put one or two samples in one place in the song and they would never be there again.
Oh yeah. But it kind of like,
it would catch you. So I've been trying to sort of take that idea into the music I've been writing, you know, whether it's like hip hop style music or if it's like dance music. And I've been trying to like place like one or two, like not like heavily popular things, but things that like I enjoy, like, you know,
something that you, if you knew the original song, you would know exactly where it came from, but it's all out of context.
I don't know how many times I've been on the dance floor and you hear something like that and you're like, what was that? Maybe, but then it's too late and you're just like, okay. Like,
oh yeah. Even my like more OG, like fully written songs will have something like that in it. Just because, you know.
That's good. That's awesome. So I asked, I love this thing that I asked on the internet. I was like, let's ask Reb some questions. I wanted to go through these questions.
I'm afraid. I don't know. I may have to plead the fifth.
Okay. Okay. I think this, you know, my friend Kevin, who you don't know, Panda, shout out Panda out there. But who's a local DJ here, super good friend. He actually married us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He wants to know what you consider the term underground to be in the current state.
Well, my so the old school in me is like underground was when you are DIY, when you're figuring out the moves for yourself, and then you're steadily progressing, and not necessarily like straight to the top, right? I consider things that are popular culture now still to be underground because that's how they developed. So somebody like Common, MC from Chicago, his first records were all DIY. He got picked up because one of his first album got rated super crazy in The Source, which was like the Bible of hip hop magazines back then. And then he got put on, and now he's on a major. Well, like back then, it's like if you're on a major, you're selling out, right? So that's not underground. But to me, it's like if you put in that work to get there, I can't really say that you're not underground. You may get paid for doing a commercial, or you may get paid for this or that. But realistically, if your work is the work of the underground, I'm all right with it. That being said, like when we were talking about how Albuquerque's DIY, you know, we don't have like the corporate party promoter kind of thing going on here. I feel like the overground now, or whatever, sellout, or however you want to term it, what's not underground, are like these festivals where it's like EDC, even though that started as a small operation, now that's like, you know, corporate advertising basically.
Yeah.
And it's not that the people who play it aren't underground, because some of them are and some of them may not be. And honestly, it's not for any one of us to say. I think everybody kind of has their own definition, but it's consumerism. It's like, it's not a community. It's a giant like youth movement, which is great, but it's just not like the underground. And really the underground to me is like the community and how you build your business. Like, say, take something like Dirty Bird. You were talking about Dirty Bird earlier. I have their first records. I remember when they were like basically making house music, and then like it kind of morphed, and Claude's style like took a left turn. And he's talked about this when he like started making like techno records but house, and then playing sets of it, and it just kind of all like blew up for him. But like Justin Martin's early records are like basically like house music,
very housey,
and like and so they kind of like
all that Buzz and Fly stuff, dude. This is like all house music.
Yeah, well, and it's like they built a sound, built their brand. Now it's like you could consider it not underground because like they have marketing and they have this big, you know, they have a handful of festivals they do. But to me, that's underground because they built that.
Yeah,
they didn't contract it out and go to like Ticketmaster and say, hey, we're going to do this thing and we're going to like promote with Pepsi, and like, you know what I mean? It's like they built it. And there's always been a degree of outside capital wanting to come in and make some money, or, you know, use the DJ or rave ethos for advertising. But really, like, the people who are building it and they're still doing it. I'm not going to get mad because somebody is making money, you know, like I'm not going to get mad because somebody got such a following that they're able to charge and have ticket prices go to them. What I don't really vibe with, and this is just me personally, is like paying a ton of money for a show where it's really only going to be like one or two people I want to see, which is part of why the festival thing isn't really my bag. But I also know it's like an experience unlike what I grew up with. And so I don't understand it anyway. And so I'm not going to hate on it. It's just, I'm not going to go. Like, you know, I mean, and, you know, for the kids now, it's like, that's how you get hooked in. And realistically, like, I think it was Carl Cox. It's like, you know, you get in where you get in. Like, we can't like control that. But what we can control as DJs is how well we play and what do we represent. And then, like I said, the 5% that stick around, maybe they'll be there in 10 years vibing with us. I mean, maybe not.
That's great perspective, man. I love that. Let's see. Whitney wants to know, red or green chili?
I'm a big green.
Okay.
Like, and honestly, as a Caucasian without family roots in New Mexico, it took me a while. Like, I want to say probably the first like 10 years I lived here, it was very sparing. I was like, and with somebody who has digestive issues also, I got to be like, I got to pick my spots. But what's good now is I can eat green, and I can eat really hot green, and I actually like will put it on things like here at the house. Like, we just have some in the fridge all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, like, you know, if you'd have told me that like 20 years ago, I'd have looked at you like, what, who's this person? Like, but I love it. It's so good. And so I'm a big green person. Red is good in some recipes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like carne adobada, but like, it's got to be done a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's big on red, but she's like born and raised. So
yeah, I
mean,
I'm also a green person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like the same way. I only take, you know, red if it's in some good carne asada, or if it's in pozole, or, you know, for all my white friends who are watching, for all you white people out there, don't be confused, but we are talking about New Mexico's staple crop, the hatch green chili pepper, which then turns into when processed more into red chili, it could be turned into sauces, into meat sauces. And this is not like chili beans to our interesting neighbors to the east, Texas. But
no.
It's a spicy pepper that is unlike anywhere else, just simply because of the climate that it's grown in Hatch, New Mexico. You could grow a hatch pepper outside in New Mexico, but it's not going to taste the same, just because there's a big fight about labeling hatch chili. There's a big legality fight through the people of Hatch, New Mexico, fighting like these growers in Colorado, naming their stuff. And still to this very day, these growers in Colorado are naming on their side of their boxes Hatch chili, and, you know, sending it off. And I can guarantee that a lot of the chili that is out there in the system, probably I would say 10%, 20% of it might not even originate in New Mexico, simply for legality reasons that they're still fighting. So that's a whole nother like episode. I'm going to call it chili person. I was going
to say, that's like a different podcast altogether.
I know. The chili podcast. I want to call like some old 80-year-old farmer lady in Hatch and have her rant to me. It's going to be great.
Get some abuelas on this one.
I'm going to cause a heart attack. Oh man, you may or may not, you know, you could plead the fifth on any of these, just so you know. So Terry Vernix wants to know about the Pass Out set.
Okay, so let's just get this out of the way real quick. Family Productions. You know, Family Productions, they've been throwing parties. They originated in Albuquerque. Probably about 4 years after I started playing, they started doing shows, and I played at their first rave and have played for them, and am loosely affiliated now. Like, you know, when we all get together, like, I help promote their stuff. They're great people. They threw a 12-year anniversary out the Pajarito ski basin.
Dude, I was there.
Yeah.
Is that the time they played dubstep for like 32 hours straight?
Yeah.
I was so pissed. Whitney and I were so pissed.
Well, and
they didn't rest the system at all.
This is like when dubstep was kind of in middle school, so it was starting to get more aggressive. It wasn't like the old, like, what I consider like the classic golden era. As a listener, I've never DJed dubstep, but as a listener, I prefer the heady Joe Nice vibe, right?
Yeah.
This was when it was starting to get like mid-range and like weirdness.
I love how you call it dubstep went to middle school.
Well, because now it's like even worse. It's like now it's like headbanger music.
It's headbanger. It's very different.
And I'm not one to judge, but like I do not come to the club to mosh or to like get physical with people. And apparently that's the thing for a segment of the EDM world. I need to reserve judgment because I am completely disconnected from that part of the EDM community. But yeah, that spiraled. And the thing is, there's still a lot of really good dubstep being put out. So I don't want
to be fair, that was an amazing venue.
What now?
That was an amazing venue.
Oh,
how they were able to I don't know how they got the Pajarito ski basin resort. I don't know how that happened.
Dude, that had to like involve like a bag man or something.
Some kind of like lifty
Like,
was like, yeah, you guys can go ahead. Just don't tell no one.
yeah. Well, and then remember like the bike race came through?
Dude, what was that all about? There's just dudes on bikes coming down the hill. We're just like, what the fuck?
And getting all mad at us.
They're pissed.
Oh, yeah. So I was like going to close out this party, and about 30 minutes into my hour and a half set, you know, we had been drinking like all weekend. And this is, you know, I got up I got up to the booth at probably like 5:30 or 6 in the morning after staying up and drinking and, you know, all night. I had a bottle of Cavassier that I was waiting until my set to open, and we opened it and proceeded to drink it like almost entirely with like 4 people because nobody else wanted any because it was so late, and it was like, what are you doing? So I passed out while I was DJing, got up, and I was like, no, I can do this, you know, like I can do it. It's fine. I'm good. I'm better than all you motherfuckers anyway. Like, you know, and I put on another record like into like a crazy train wreck, and then like I have a scar on my face where I like hit the center block falling down forward into like a hump of humanity. And I was done. I, at that point, was passed out, had to get like carried by Good Samaritans to Allison's SUV. We had been dating for less than 3 months. So I didn't wake up until we were in front of her house in Albuquerque.
Wow.
They like got all our, like I basically was probably like in her car for at least like an hour while they got all our stuff and like did all this, you know, I mean, put everything away. I woke up with a beanie over my eyes, like all the way down and out in front of her house. And I'm like, what happened? And so then like the legend was born. And the thing is, it's like, I could try and live it down, but it did happen, you know, and realistically, I've never gone that hard with myself ever again. And it's not so much because I'm not trying to party, but it's because I feel like I would be mad if like if I paid to go see somebody else and that happened, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I kind of like a dereliction of duty or something, you know, I didn't come through when I was supposed to, but it's hilarious. And I mean, a family 12-year event is all friends anyway. Mm-hmm. So really like, I just get shit for it from everybody, but you know, who hasn't been there? Like we've all had our bad nights.
I've definitely been there.
So other than that, I plead the fifth. No, but that's the version you're going to hear right now. And that's basically all the important points. There were some other things, but really, and you know, I mean, it's like, I think of every single person who was involved in that incident, and we're all so much more grown up now that like, if we were all sitting here together and you knew us in our lives now, you'd be like, y'all did what? You guys were low. What? Like, I can't believe, you know? And like, it's just one of those things that happened. So I just,
awesome.
The best person to ask about this though is Deja, because Deja was right there. And when I couldn't play, apparently like I was playing vinyl, which at that time
he played your records, right?
Well, no, at that time it was like half and half. And I had all this stuff up that I was going to get ready to play in my set. Like I basically had brought like a bunch of favorites and a lot of deep stuff because it was like dubstep was over for the evening. And he was standing there and they were like, well, somebody's got to play. And so he tried to play my records. And first record apparently that he pulled out was a double pack remix of Around the World. And he like put it on. He had no idea. And he was like mortified. Because I mean, this is
Hold 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. I want to hold you up. Hold up.
Breaks, like kind of getting into dubstep at that time. Uh-huh. And he puts that record on and he was just like, he explained it to me. It's all the only way I had this him. So We're back.
So, yeah, so he put on that Around the World remix and was like mortified, and then he's someone that plays like breaks and was just like freaked out.
Oh no. Yeah, and like I said, he tells the story better than I could because I'm telling it secondhand. I was there, but I wasn't there. So if you ever talk to him, ask him about that, because that is just like, it's ridiculous. and I'm not surprised that like many of the questions, many of the people who responded to your post wanted to know about that.
That's great.
A bit infamous. So
that's great. Let's try one of these other ones. I think this one's great. This one is, who posted this? Oh, Haley. Haley asked, what are your thoughts on Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka?
Okay, so this is not as controversial an opinion these days as when I first had it, like 10 years ago.
So this is a thing.
What?
This is a real thing.
No, yeah, Grandpa Joe is an awful person. So Willy Wonka, the original movie.
Yeah.
Like, Willy's like, I mean, they're like a poor family. All the grandparents are in bed. He somehow like hooks the golden ticket, and old dude gets out of bed, starts like shuffling, basically like dancing like a mad person. And it's like the mom of Charlie's mom like is like soot on her face. She works 10 jobs just to like support all these grandparents and her son. And then once it's time to go to the chocolate factory, old dude's out like, oh yeah, like party time. And then he goes to the chocolate factory, and all of the bad things that happen to the other kids, it's like it should happen to them too. Because Joe's like messing around, drinking all the stuff. Like, dude, Joe, like, I have no respect for Joe. And the thing is, this used to be like a pretty controversial opinion, but now there's like a whole website about how awful Grandpa Joe is. And like, it's more culturally accepted to talk shit about Grandpa Joe these days.
It's fucking hilarious.
I'm an original Grandpa Joe truther. I need everybody to know.
That's great. Yeah, think about it. Like, how long has he been milking his daughter? Yeah. You know,
it's like, bro, help out. Like, you could do the laundry at least. Like, you just turn that on and get back into bed.
Oh
like,
man,
you're not doing anything productive for this family. And yeah, no, I have maximum contempt for Grandpa Joe.
Reminds me of that rap song, where people wear pajamas and live life slow.
Yeah, for real. Oh my God.
How did you come up with your name, The Rev?
Okay, so this is like a little bit of a story, but I when I was in high school, I was already kind of like, DJing, making little tapes and stuff. And this was like during a time, if you know the history of like Saturday Night Live, Adam Sandler used to do this character called Cajun Man.
Yes.
And everything with O-N at the end was oh, right? And so in Austin, Texas, I went to a high school with a bunch of cowboys. Like, we had like an FFA chapter, and like they would wear all their stuff around school, like hats and like
chaps and the whole nine.
Wranglers and like the starch shirts, and like it was just a style of dress. But like there was this guy who would always call us all, and then some like illicit evening, everybody's names were turned backwards, and then the "on" was added, so it became Meton. And then it was just Meton. And then it just like kept going after that night to where I was just getting called Meton by like just this guy. But like, I needed a DJ name. I didn't want my DJ name to be like DJ Tim or, I didn't want to be DJ something.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents are ministers, both of them. And so it would always, the running joke was like, somebody would call the house on the landline and be like, is Reverend Reynolds there? And I'd be like, well, which one? And so, but Reverend was just like something different than DJ. So
I like that.
It was Reverend Mitten. And I take it as like a family lineage kind of thing. I'm not like, I don't want to say I'm not religious. I don't go to church really. Sorry, Dad. But I am spiritual, and I feel like this music and this community is like an extension of what faith I have, which is do unto others as you want them to do to you, you know, help people who are in need. I'm definitely not a evangelical or conservative person by any means, but the spiritual guidance is that we look out for each other, right? I mean, you look out for your family, but you also look out for your friends, you look out for your community. And so it kind of vibed, and like, it was like tongue in cheek at first, but then it's like, it just is now. But the transformation of the name, like halfway through, because that's like a ton of letters and it takes up a lot of space on a flyer, Grant just put the Rev on one of the Junebug flyers because everybody else's name was like 6 or 7 letters. And you remember it used to be a circle. So it was like, I was going to throw the balance all off with my big old long DJ name. And so he put that, and Donovan was already calling me, like, he would just call me Rev. Like, I don't think, like, I can't remember the last time like that guy called me, hey, Tim. It's always just Rev. Like, and so the Rev is like colloquially what people call me. So I just tell people, like, if you want to put the Rev, put the Rev. If you want to put Reverend Mitten, put Reverend Mitten. When I produce, I usually use Reverend Mitten because there's like a ton of different the Revs in music. And so just for clarification's sake, all the tunes that I'm putting out will be Reverend Mitten. But, you know, it is what it is. Just put whatever you want on a flyer, whatever's going to fit, you know?
That's awesome. What a fun story. That's freaking awesome. Let's see, another one. So someone says Happy Easter.
Oh, that's my brother.
Oh, maybe that's why he asked the question, you know, and then he said Happy Easter.
Well, I think, you know, my older brothers, they kind of know a lot of this stuff, but I, you know, especially like the origin of the name, it's for our parents, you know. I mean, we were lucky to have very loving, active parents. Our mom was one of the first women to be a minister in our denomination back in the 80s. So like kind of breaking barriers, and I've always had a ton of respect for both of them. And so it I don't know, it kind of makes me warm inside that at least like that's where it came from, and not just some random like throw the dart at the dartboard kind of thing, you know.
That's great, man. It's got a good story behind it. It means something. I feel like a lot of people, they're you know, fishing in the water for something that sounds cool or
is like super marketable.
Yeah.
I always feel like kind of opposite for me, because like I get like churches follow me on Twitter, and like we're like people think that I'm like a reverend, or like, you know what I mean? And so like I feel
a lot of us, you are a reverend, man. You are a reverend. Like,
but if you think about it from like the rave perspective, it's like, what is this, like some weird gospel rave, or like what is this reverend like? And so I feel like it may, but you know, I mean, in Albuquerque it's small enough, like people kind of know at this point, and if they don't know, then that's fine too.
Chicago or Detroit?
I mean, Chicago. Detroit is amazing, but like Chicago's like the birthplace, and for me, like my favorite wave of DJs that I aspire to are Chicago. Like that's just the grit. And you know, you read, but you know, like I said, I didn't know what house music was when I first started liking it, and then like you kind of backtrack and like find out about the history and find out about the origin of the music and the culture and the name house and like all of that stuff. Like it's Chicago. Detroit is like, I utmost respect for that. It's just, it wasn't my vibe, and I'm not a techno guy per se. So really like it's Chicago.
Yeah. I feel the same sentiment if I had to pick one. So, favorite time slot and why?
Oh man. See, that's like, they all are. I mean,
I love that. All of them.
I don't know. I mean, like my favorite time slot is mine. Like whichever one you gave me, because realistically, like every single one is a challenge. Like you're opening, like it's like cliche nowadays, and there's like, go read the article on Pitchfork or whatever about why opening DJs are important, but it is. It's like, set the table.
Can you say that one more time for everyone to hear it again?
Set the table. It's important. And the thing is, like, it could be very rewarding and fun to do that. And no, you're not going to get all the shine. You're basically going to, it's like you're a point guard, you're alley-oop to whoever's going to dunk it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, LeBron James ends up on there because he goes like this, but somebody had to do this.
Yeah.
And it may as well be me. But like, I always really like the morning, but I almost never play at a party that goes till the morning anymore. The morning was always like the spiritual vibe, right? Like, Easter Sunday, sun's coming up.
It's the best.
You've got people have been up all night, or maybe some people went to sleep and now they're kind of waking up because it's getting hot in their tent or whatever. The morning is beautiful. It's natural, like after a night of like lasers and just visuals and whatever. The morning, it's like you're out, you see the mountain or you see the hillside or wherever it is that you are. And it's like you're kind of like coming back down to earth. And so I like that vibe of taking whatever bangingness has been going on all night and just like landing the plane.
That's awesome.
And I cherish that, but again, it's not something I get to do very often. I haven't done it in the last 2 years, and this year's not looking too good.
Yeah, I actually got up early this morning and I played for an hour, and it was like an ode to like the morning. It was first thing in the morning. I didn't make coffee. Whitney and the baby and the dogs miraculously were all still asleep. And
Nice.
I played an hour. I had it like live on Facebook this morning, and hopefully they don't cut it off, but I played like what I would think, what I would want to hear as a morning set. And it was just really nice to like just hear that smooth sort of just easygoing vibe, even for myself.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I get carried away of going like too many places, but I was like stuck on morning vibe this morning. It was good. It was a good feeling. It was just a good feeling. So I appreciate that I'm not the only one that like just appreciates that time and space as like a reset for whatever it is. It's definitely much of a reset. Let's see what else anyone has a good one. Okay. If you could go back to back with any DJ in the world, who would you love to play with?
Derek Carter.
Look behind you.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's the one, and really like, that's when I talk about like aspirational, like he's one of the only people left who like will play. And I know some of the songs, and I know technically I know what he's doing, but I don't know what he's doing. Like I don't understand sometimes like how he's pulling certain things off. And so it's just like, and I mean, even at that show, like I was like kind of hovering, I don't want to get in anybody's space, but like towards the end of the night, that's kind of what happens at Meow Wolf, is everybody just congregates up there. And so like,
it's a boiler room show up there. I've seen the videos.
No, it's fun. He like just was going in, and like he played like this snippet of this song from 25 years ago, and I told him, I was like, I cannot remember the last time I've heard this song. And he told me something like, he was like, oh yeah, the Queens love this shit. And I was like, yeah, they do. Like, but it's just like 3 decks nonstop all night. And the thing is, like, as much as I would want to be with that dude, like I would be like, this is not allowed. You just go ahead. Like,
That's awesome.
I mean, that's like the aspirational, like who I would want to vibe off of in terms of music, because he can do the same thing. He can take it down. He can get aggressive. He could play techno. He can play house. Like he could play like crazy acid house and then bring in like an Aaliyah vocal over the top, or you know what I mean? It's just like whatever. Like his acapella work is like ridiculous.
Magician.
And it's usually on the fly. It's not like he plans it out. He just like finds it and dials it up and goes, you know?
Magician.
Yeah.
Magician. That's awesome. So like outside of music, what do you enjoy?
I am really digging on Family Vibe, like, you know. It more than I ever have. I enjoy staying home. I'm a ridiculously avid sports fan. So like baseball, basketball, football, hockey,
Mhm.
and now, like I said, unfortunately, I'm a soccer fan too. It's amazing. I used to make fun of it. I used to think it was very boring, and now we have a team, and it's like insane how fun it is.
Mhm.
But it's like I say, unfortunately, because now I follow 5 different sports, and it's like, except for this shutdown, like
Uh,
I'm like always there's always a game I have to watch. Like it's like it's fun, and I like the competition aspect. I grew up with it, just watching, and I played baseball. I played a little bit of basketball as a younger kid, and so like I've always appreciated that. I don't really like watch TV shows,
uh,
so like if the TV's on, that's like what's happening. What's cool about sports though too is like if I want to be working in the studio or something, I can just have it on and on mute. You don't really need to listen to it to like get what's happening. You
mhm.
can kind of follow it peripherally, and still do other things and like be productive otherwise.
Yeah, that's
So, but
awesome.
yeah, it's dumb. It's seriously like childish how much I like sports.
That's good though. I think that's it keeps you busy and it keeps you like engaged, and you could it
I mean,
man. So eventually, when this lockdown ends, you'll have to come to a United versus T2 game,
bro,
and we'll
yeah,
we'll get you on over here. That'd be awesome.
so down.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like having the United here has been like, we went to the first game just because it's like brand new, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, go check this out. And it was so fun that we ended up buying like a 10-pack season tickets for like the rest of the season. We basically went every time they played on the weekend, and like we're like fanatical about it and buying gear, and like just it's awesome. Like it's and the community around it is different than like the Isotopes is cool, but like nobody really cares if they win
Yeah.
because it's not a league. And then the Lobos is cool. Like we have season tickets to basketball, and usually we get them for football. And but the thing about the Lobos is the fan base is always sour. So you're always basically just arguing with somebody because they don't have any faith that they're ever going to do anything, and they're always like, even when they're pretty good, it's like they're going to mess it up at the end. And the thing is, those people are right, but I don't want to like interact with negative people all the time. And so it's like, it's stressful, And so like the United is dope because everybody's just like, the United are the best. We love our team. Like even when they lose, it's like, it's cool. We're going to win next game. Like it's just a different vibe, like completely
You know
from
what?
any of the
Soccer
sports.
culture is so different, and people don't really understand it, how much love. Like I get it
Oh
now. I
yeah.
totally
Well,
get
and
it after living here.
it's like the community like we're trying to do. It's like your
Mhm.
family. It's like
Mhm.
all the fans of the team that you are for is a family.
Mhm.
And like there's some of that with Lobos, and there's some of that with like Major League Sports and stuff, but it's like not like soccer's just
Yeah.
different like that. It's just I don't know. I don't think I ever understood that part of it at all. All
So
I ever
you
knew about was like the riots and the fights and stuff.
so Jim Wilson, who lives here now,
Yeah.
who owned he was super stoked about having you on. He wants to listen, but he owns what like shout out Jim and the Pepper Box, my absolute favorite restaurant in town. Only place I could go and get like fresh chopped green
Oh,
chili. He is
that's
a
what's up.
huge Timbers fan, and he
Oh,
gets
sweet.
season tickets, and he's like full Timbers Army, which is like this whole section of our stadium
Oh
that's
yeah.
just like the most hardcore rowdy fans, and
So
it's
rowdy. Yeah.
the rowdiest. In fact, they would make me, because I was younger when I worked at the stadium, they would make me work in the Timbers Army section because I could quote unquote handle it. But at the same time, you weren't really dealing with people with fighting each other. It was more of like dealing with some dude who got like way too drunk, and now he's like falling over on the people next to him or something
Yeah.
like that. And he would be upset that he would have to like, I'm like, hey man, let's go sober up over here. And he's like, no, I'm
Yeah.
gonna miss the game.
You're a soccer bouncer.
Yeah, but those fans, they donate so much of their time for the love of their team, like making these giant banners and signs, and it's like community owned stuff, and some of it's been there like going on years now, and these all of a sudden they just got this giant, like, where the fuck did this fucking 100-yard flag come from?
Yeah.
That's going over everyone.
Out and, like, it goes over all the people.
Yeah, I know. Like, how do you see? I don't.
Dude.
You know what? Shout out to all the MLS fans and even all the, you know, Premier League fans all across the world and all of like the big leagues out there. I have a ton of students who aspire to be, you know, pro soccer players. You know, they want to be the next Ronaldo. You know, and they want, or like the next Diego Chara, who's one of our superstars on the Timbers. You know, when working at the stadium, I had to learn. Part of our job was to learn who was on the team, or else you'd be shit out of luck. They'd be like, "Why do you work here?" You know, like you would be shunned, especially working in the Timbers Army. Like you would be chopping it up with some dude who's had season tickets since the first game, and if you couldn't like wrap it up with him, like they would, like the Timbers Army, they could legitimately ask someone else to be there. Like that works. Like for some reason they have an influence. They have
like a relationship with the club, right? It's like
absolutely.
Yeah.
My next door neighbor, Jim, he was an older man, probably like 72, 75-ish. He also worked in the Timbers Army because he was such a hard ass. But everyone loved Jim at the stadium. Like anytime there was like an issue that was like super serious, they're like, "Jim, go take care of it." And he'd be like, "Word." And I don't know if he would just like whisper in people's ear that he was going to slit their throat or something, but it never failed that Jim could handle absolutely any crazy situation.
Quiet and effective.
Yeah. I love the dude. He was like slightly racist, but it was like, I love the dude. I don't know. The older generation, man, they don't mean to be. I don't think sometimes it's just like some of the vocabulary that they grow up with might not be so savory to 2019 or 2020.
The lack of filter is apparent.
Yeah. So I guess let's leave a note on, you know, the last part of our conversation. I would love, there's a lot of people out there who are, you know, even myself, I aspire to have so many of your traits, really, just as a musician, as a person in our community. What would you tell someone, or maybe even tell a younger self, if you were growing up in this day and age, to be successful in music and community, in life? What would you say? Just spread some wisdom. I feel like you're such an amazing person to drop wisdom on someone. How many times I've had a conversation with you, just like, this is priceless time, just sitting next to the Rev listening.
Well, it's kind of hard. Like I'll tailor it to like this conversation. Like if you're trying to DJ, if you're trying to write music, the best thing you can do is focus on it and, you know, set yourself up for it. Like if you want to be a DJ in clubs, don't get a job at a restaurant where you're going to have to work until 1 a.m. You know what I mean? Like figure that part out, figure out how to tailor your life to best produce that result, you know, and, you know, you gotta be good. You gotta focus on music. You gotta have a good ear, but really, again, like you could teach people how to DJ. Like, you could. I've never done it, but you could teach somebody how to DJ. You could teach somebody like, here's where you buy the records or the wave files or whatever it is. You know, you could show somebody all that stuff. If they don't focus on it, if they don't take real time and devote themselves to it, it's not really going to make much, you know? Mm-hmm. And so really if you say you want it, you got to really want it. You got to do something about it. You can't just like wait around for things to happen for you. And, you know, go after whatever it is. And, you know, once you've learned how to put a set together, then you take the next step and introduce yourself to people who are throwing shows or other DJs, because half the time they're the ones who are throwing shows too. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, get out there, be personable. It's hard because it's unbelievable for people who know me as friends, but like, I'm pretty shy. Like I don't really reach out to people when I first meet them. I have to kind of it takes me a while. Like my intuition isn't really that great. Maybe I'm selling myself short, but like I'm super shy. So I don't know how much of myself somebody even really wants to hear about. So until I'm like on good, like friendly terms with somebody, I'm not like going to promote myself or be all up in someone's face. But you have to get over that and put yourself out there, because if you don't, like, again, there's not a DJ agency looking in people's bedrooms or on people's live stream or scrolling Facebook or SoundCloud, like looking for the next big thing. The people who are going to be the next big thing or the next anything are working for it all the time. And that's the advice I would give. And I mean, you can apply that to anything really. Like if you want to get into TV, learn how to run all the TV equipment. You know what I mean? Like if you want to get into working for movies, like get a job at the bottom and work your way up. If you know what I mean, it's could be anything. You know, I mean, certain things obviously take a degree and you got to go to school, but like creative stuff, like you can go to school for it, but you don't have to. And you know, you can get the value just by doing. So
that's priceless wisdom right there, man. I really just appreciate this time, you know, us being locked down. This is absolutely priceless. Just not only talk to a really good friend and someone I look up to, but just to be sociable. And I think this is a really nice, despite what's going on in the world, we've been given a gift right now of having this time to be able to do things like this, because if I didn't have this time, I would have been able to plan something like this, to set this up. And, you know, I don't know what this show will turn into. I have no real plans for it. I simply just like want to talk to people and share, you know, with others. That's really all it's down to right now. So I just appreciate it, man. So maybe one day it will be a thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll have Rogan on here. Who knows?
I've enjoyed all of the episodes I've been able to listen to. I think I haven't listened to the last one that you did yet, but
Tony's a good dude, man. It was super cool. We ended up having a bunch of mutual friends and it was really interesting. It's such a small, big community. It's so weird.
Oh, yeah.
It's so interesting.
Well, like, you were talking to John Hawley about people who are out there who I knew from out here. And it's just like, yeah, you don't even know that they're out there. You know, it's like, oh yeah. But, you know, House it's worldwide, but to your point, it's definitely pretty close knit. I feel like kind of on a national or worldwide scale, I'm kind of, I don't want to say like an outsider, but I just don't like, I'm not traveling. You know, we do our thing in Albuquerque. Albuquerque's not that big, but people who do come through will remember us and speak well, hopefully, of what we do and the vibe we present. So, and I think with the show, like you can kind of make more of those connections, and I can be like, oh, I remember seeing you like talking to Carlos, that's my buddy, you know. And so it's like, and the more things that happen like this, the smaller the world gets. That's a good thing. And I like it because it's like, it's not super like, we're not promoting a new release or, you know, I'm not on to talk about my new album or my new tour. Like we're just talking shit, really.
It's,
you know,
the whole
like,
point, man. We're shooting the shit. It was the whole idea. Like I want to shoot the shit with my friends.
No, and it's cool because like you've talked about like you're going to get a friend who's a bouncer or a friend who does other things. It doesn't have to just be DJs. Like it could be dance, it could be people who put sets together or visuals, light. You know what I mean? Like there's so many components and there's so many really interesting people that the idolization of just the DJ part, I feel like is misguided because it takes a lot more people. Like I can't throw a party by myself. Like I don't, you know, I mean, nobody would come and I would, you know, maybe some people would come, but like I don't have a sound system. I don't have lighting. It would be pretty boring if I tried to throw a party by myself. But you get a group of people together and do something cool.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you spending, man, almost 2 hours now. This has been awesome. It just goes by so fast. It
really does.
Yeah. After this, I have like probably like 20 to 30 wheelbarrows of soil to take from my front yard to my backyard right now. So.
Oh, bro. We have to cut down elms. Like we have these invasive elms and they just always start growing in the spring because like we can't stop them. Like, so every year at this time, it's just like they start creeping out. So we got to.
I know exactly which ones you're talking about in New Mexico.
It's so terrible.
So
yeah, that'll be part of my afternoon.
Whitney wants to say hi.
Hi. Oh, I can't hear you, but I just wanted to say hi.
Oh, hi. Oh, she's adorable. Goodness. So, like, which one of you three is the best DJ?
Definitely Which one of
The
us three
baby.
is the best DJ?
Oh, definitely Frida. for
Definitely
sure.
Frida.
She started at the womb, you know.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, she's been
perfect.
DJing since she was in the womb, literally.
That's the.
Well, I appreciate your time, man.
Well,
If you,
she's adorable.
thank you.
Hey, always.
Hell yeah, man.
Whenever, and you know what? We'll talk. I'm going to send you some tunes.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more. But keep doing these, man. I'm going to listen to every one of them that you do.
Hell yeah,
So-
dude. Thank you for the support, man. I appreciate it. And then, till next time.
Yes. Oh, and tell your sister and your cousin what's up too.
I will. Later, man.